Sometimes you have to take a step back and ask, why does my city exist? Here in Salmon Bay, it's pretty straightforward. We have a large natural harbor sitting deep inside the Puget Sound, safe from the dangers of the open ocean. It's the perfect place for a large deep water port, and today, now that the Birdges Ports DLC is finally here, our city will open its port to the wider world. Welcome back to Salmon Bay. The Birdges Ports update changes a few aspects of the simulation, particularly to traffic, but since Salmon Bay is still quite small, there's nothing too major to fix. The biggest issue is actually a massive new workforce shortage, and that we'll be able to address naturally during the build today. We'll make some traffic adjustments and grow the city, but first, let's build out the new port complex. To start with, let's clear out the entire port area and start from scratch. I had originally laid this out to fit the vanilla port in, but now that we have fancy custom ports, let's just start with a clean slate. Now I want to get the overall layout of the port figured out. I placed the medium entrance so the port can grow a bit easier in the future, which I'll connect directly to Highway 99 with a large road. I'm not very good at making symmetrical curved roads on the first go, but thankfully Move It lets me reticulate the splines until it looks right. I want to reuse the existing train infrastructure, so I'm placing the intermodal connection in line with the existing tracks. And then the cranes go, obviously, along the water. I did try to do a double crane, but then it didn't end up playing nicely with the pathing, so you'll see that disappear. So now I have the overall layout in place. Ships unload on the pier, and the cargo can be sent locally with trucks through the main entrance, or transferred to the train station on the right side for regional transit. I also added a pier extension on the right here with a slip between that will serve as a berth for ships to park in. With the basic outline and main infrastructure pieces in place, I'm going to place in the storage lots. I want this to feel very organized, so I'll co-locate shipping container storage with the train terminal, and the open material storage will fit closer to the entrance, along with a warehouse building. Lastly, I'll put the fuel storage over on the pier. I want fuel to be a little bit on its own, mostly for safety reasons. In the event of an accident or like a military strike or something, you gotta be prepared, you know? Now I'll add in the outside connections. The larger dock will have large ships going up the inside passage to Vancouver and Alaska, and the smaller dock will have smaller ships going south to Tacoma. The train will be the same Cascadia cargo route that was already here. To finish up the port, I'm going to do a bunch of detailing. My plan is to pour a lot of concrete, add some unkempt shrubbery to some neglected corners, and fill a lot of spaces with the kind of cluttered storage and utility uses that you see in industrial areas like this. And now I'm pleased to unveil for you the new and improved Port of Salmon Bay. There's quite a bit of off-camera work here, so let's go over it. Although this is mostly a giant concrete slab, I tried to fill it in with some of the kinds of things you see in these kinds of structures. I used a couple of regular industrial buildings with this dirty grass surface to make it look churned up or ignored. There's not any actual landscaping, but some vegetation pokes through in some areas. Some open areas are being used for extra storage by the city, like roadblocks or these extra service vehicles, and outside the gate there's this open lot for trucks or empty trailers to park in between loads. There's room for the port to expand operations or to handle big fluxes and backups in storage. Around the border, I drew in a perimeter fence, which is also the only place that has actual landscaped vegetation. I can't fill in the empty lots outside the gate yet because of the city's labor shortage, but I'm hoping that when this is all filled in, it will look realistic, industrial, and integrated into the city. I'm hoping to be able to do this at the end of the episode. There's just one last thing to do, which is make a roadway connection into the rest of the industrial waterfront. I'll make sure that I connect to this street further back because it's the one street in this grid that connects directly to Highway 99, so it can work as a collector. And then I'll also update the overpass to connect into that street instead of one that just dead ends. This should make everything have better traffic flow and just make better sense. Let's move on now and make a few quick traffic changes. I'll start right here on the waterfront. This section of 99 with the trams just doesn't have enough traffic lanes. This was a mistake I made when this was first built up, and I should have just made it bigger then, but you know, sometimes this happens. So this infrastructure is not very old, and here we are ripping it up anyway. I'll have to take out a bunch more businesses here, and then I can just upgrade the street size and fill those empty lots back. Next, let's go down the highway into Fishing Spear, where we've had some issues with left turn traffic into the mall causing big highway backups. Since City Skylines imagines a society that never invented the protected left turn, we can't really do the obvious here and just add in a turn lane. So I'm going to update this intersection to a roundabout, and I definitely want to separate foot traffic using a pedestrian overpass. Unfortunately, this will mean taking out a few houses with eminent domain, but such is the price of progress. Back in Salmon Bay proper, I'll just quickly upgrade the main highway entrance to have more lanes coming into the city. At this point, there's still a lot of downtown traffic, but let's talk about why that is. If we look at the city layout, for Sims traveling south to the Waterfront or Fishing Spear, there's really only two roads they can pick, the Salmon Bay Highway or Highway 99. We've created quite a funnel, and some of our largest neighborhoods like Wee Scotland on the east side or Coho to the north have to drive through the whole downtown before getting to those arterials. This is not an issue of undersized infrastructure, it's an issue of connectivity. And counterintuitively, we can fix it by growing the city and giving drivers more options to get to these arterial roads, especially by expanding the waterfront district and providing more access to it from the city. But first, I want to extend the large street on the north side of the city, wrap it around Wee Scotland, and connect it to the interchange with the Salmon Bay Highway. There needs to be a way for Sims to get around or to Wee Scotland easier, as well as for residents of that district to have access to an arterial without going through downtown. This connection should relieve a lot of the traffic pressure downtown. Alright, with that little bit of infrastructure in place, let's go to expanding the city. And I'll start on the waterfront. There's a few little details I want to get right here. I kept this dead-ended rail line here so that I could preserve this retaining wall, and now I'm going to convert it to a road while doing my best to keep that wall in place. This is an extension of Highway 99, which is a 4-lane road, so I'm going to wrap that around the support pillar here. This will create an imperfection in the layout, save some money, and show some history. It's a completely unnecessary detail, but it will make this part of the city feel a bit more real and grounded. I also need to straighten out the train tracks and fix the tunnel exit here because it is, well, just broken. I mean, look at this. While I'm here, the tunnel on the other side is actually 4 sets of tracks, not 2, so I'm going to extend that capacity through the expanded waterfront while straightening out the tracks. Before I can do that though, I need to extend the seawall. This will give us better, flatter, more buildable space while also protecting the shoreline from erosion and preventing our city from randomly sliding into the bay in one big mudslide. Cool, now we have a defined border and lots of buildable space. Now it's time to grid out the area. There's a lot of terrain here, so it's going to be tricky. I'll start with an overpass connecting this large road that goes to the Chinook neighborhood with this wonky elevated interchange thing that should be a pretty striking, if excessive, bit of waterfront infrastructure. The rest will be a variation of our existing grid that will kind of warp around to conform to the terrain. Okay, here's what I'm starting with. It's a small area but with very difficult terrain, so it's tricky to get right. By the way, I also gridded out our industrial area in front of the port. Okay, with everything in place and without developing these blocks, we can see what I meant earlier about connectivity, as these streets are already getting pretty decent amount of use. Now, in the middle of making this episode, the game released an update that adds bikes to the city. As an urban biker myself, I think we have to take a detour here and do a little bit of bicycle work. I'll start over in Fishing Spear and convert some of the existing pedestrian infrastructure along the highway into combination bike lanes. And from the community park, I'll build out a dedicated bike path into the city so that these residential sims can bike into town, since bikes are not allowed on highways. Bikers will get an overpass over the trains and into the port, and from here I'll add in a network of bike lanes along some streets. I want to connect this path to the city's train station, then to downtown Salmon Bay, and connect over to the high school complex further uptown, focusing these lanes on calmer side streets instead of large busy streets. Okay, for this next part, I'm going to do something a little crazy, and you're just going to need to trust me. I'm going to completely destroy all of the blocks along this line here and redevelop them from scratch. I know what you're thinking. Stoic, there isn't a city on Earth that would level 10 city blocks for the sake of a single bike path, and you're right. I promise you that this expansion of the right-of-way here is part of a larger transit project that we'll realize in the next episode. So there is a reason I'm doing this, and it will all make sense soon. Now we do need to make a couple of small updates to our city services. Our high school is full, so let's build an extension. Our police force is also lagging behind, so I'll add an expansion to our main PD building and add a small police station as the port police. Down on the waterfront, I'll add the new fishing special industry next to our older piers. This is something that took some finesse with mods to get to look integrated with our new seawall. I gave it a storage expansion, mostly for looks, and a parking lot. For the fishing zones, we'll have one by the mouth of the river to catch salmon and one on the north side of the bay for some crabbing. At this point, we've opened a lot of holes in the city, and it's time to develop all of these empty lots. I'll go through everything carefully, and it'll be mostly off camera, and then I'll come back and show you the results. I'm going to manually plop everything, and I'll have to fight with the terrain a lot and plant a lot of landscaping, so it's just going to take a while. And so, with the magic of editing, we can go straight to... And there we are, phase 1 of the Salmon Bay Waterfront Expansion Project. Honestly, I spent quite a bit of time on this small little area, so let's take a look. Building on hills in this game takes some creativity. I put in a mix of retaining walls, thickets of bushes, proper landscaping, or rock walls to get the buildings to look good on the terrain or hide some imperfections, but I'm quite happy with the results. I think in the future, when Salmon Bay is a big city, most blocks will look like this, built into the hill and dense enough to fill the block completely. This is what hilly downtown Seattle looks like. But that won't make logical sense until the city is larger, and I also need some practice getting blocks like this to actually look good. Down on the waterfront, I built this fancy apartment complex overlooking the water. I really like these tiered decks. I think they're a pretty common style on waterfront apartments like this, and the view would be fantastic. I mean, just look at their view of the sunset. Wow. Next to it is a big public park area, which might extend behind this interchange thing in the future, and on the other side there's a fancy waterfront cafe, and then a big Chinese restaurant. I tried to keep this a bit low-key because, as I've said, this is pretty early in Salmon Bay's life, and it doesn't make sense to have a big touristy waterfront in a little industrial port city. Anyway, overlooking the train tunnel exit, I put in this apartment complex that I think is also pretty cool, which sits over some thick natural vegetation around the tunnel and tracks. Down by the port, I filled in this area with some industry buildings, which I think helps make it look more integrated, and will look even better as the city extends in this direction. This area includes a taxi company and this over-the-top office building, which I'm thinking could be the location of the Salmon Bay Times, something like that. I will also note that we have a lot of bike traffic now. I don't feel too negatively about the implementation of bikes in the game, but it is kind of an all-or-nothing thing, and I did have to add quite a bit of bike parking into the city to make this work. And speaking of bikes, if we go over to The Scar in downtown, I ended up paring this project back a bit. The separated bike path was causing some weird traffic interactions, so I created this custom road builder street with curb-protected bike lanes and a big central median. This has better traffic interactions with the bikes, and the median will actually work really well with the transit project that I hinted at earlier too. And here we are at the end of the episode. Unfortunately, the city still has a pretty big labor shortage, so in the next episode, you should expect to see a large city expansion project. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon here in Salmon Bay. Good night.